Joe Biden's biggest threat in November is turning out not to be Trump and not even his own gaffes and inadequacies. Joe Biden's biggest threat come November is the Democratic Party itself. That's right. We're going to take a look at why the Bernie bros are becoming so dangerous for the Biden candidacy and why it was all entirely predictable. You're going to absolutely love it. Greetings, everyone. Dr. Steve here with you. Wonderful to be with you as always. Before we begin, I do have a little gift for you. Make sure to download your free ebook, Your Fake News Antidote, which you can get by clicking on the link below. You're going to absolutely love the myriad of resources listed out and hyperlinked, so you never, ever have to deal with the mainstream Marxist media. Again, we've had over 10,000 downloaded absolutely free, and I've got a lot of great feedback on it, so make sure to click on that link down below and get yours today. And before we get into the whole Bernie Bros sinking Biden's campaign, make sure to head over to my special website from My Patriot Food Supply with all of the quarantines that are being enforced all over the world now, with getting confronted by empty shelves everywhere we go to the stores. As a result of this whole coronavirus pandemic, it's such a relief to know that we have such good friends over at My Patriot Food Supply. Gang, they're simply the best. And there's frankly never been a better time to stock up on emergency food supply than right now. And no one makes that more ridiculously easy and affordable as My Patriot Supply. My Patriot Supply food kits last up to 25 years in storage. They include breakfasts, lunches, and dinners. And the best part is that if you act now, you'll save 40% on a 2-week emergency food kit when you go to my special website by clicking on the link below. If you're still looking up to stock up on food and supplies, then take action today by clicking on the link below and save 40% off with your 2-week emergency food kit today. Remember, gang, I've got mine. Make sure that you get yours, and let's take care of each other throughout this whole process, all right? All right, gang, let's have a little fun here. Let's dive in. The New York Post has a great piece on how the Bernie bros are actually the real threat to the Biden campaign. Forget all of Biden's gaffes, which are innumerable, or his signs of dementia. Forget President Trump's massive war chest of funds to beat Biden into smithereens. Forget all of that. The real threat, the final nail in Biden's coffin, as it were, is going to be what are called the Bernie bros, a term coined back in 2016 campaign designating young male supporters of Sanders. Now, these were the young men drawn to Sanders' populist message, certainly a leftist populist message, but a message that rang in the hearts and minds of many who were absolutely disgusted with the center-left corporatist globalists who were running the Democratic Party with Hillary Clinton as, their self-anointed queen of the corporatist globalist left. The Bernie bros saw, and they still see, Sanders as the greatest, most prominent challenger to that center-left monopoly over the Democratic leadership. And what this piece in the Post is recognizing is that the single greatest weapon that Trump is going to be able to wield against Biden comes in the groundwork that was laid by Bernie Sanders supporters during the primary, where they laid the groundwork for the many lines of attack that the Trump campaign will be using against Joe Biden in the general election. And this is coming from a senior Trump campaign insider, from his serial dishonesty to his obvious cognitive issues to his attempts to cut Social Security. The Trump campaign is just going to have a field day with Biden. And it's a field day that was made possible largely by the Bernie campaign. Post makes clear that throughout the 2020 primaries, nobody's knives were sharper against Biden than Sanders' rabid supporters online and the far left media, like the Young Turks crowd. They hammered Biden on his support for the Iraq War, his chumminess with billionaires and super PACs, his lack of civil rights wokeness, you name it. And when Biden tried to make peace with the Sandernistas by saying that he would lower Medicare eligibility to 60 and cancel student loan debt for poor and middle-income families, it wasn't enough. It was swiftly denounced as corporatist globalist pandering. It was even denounced by Biden's own former national press secretary, if you could believe it. But not to be outdone, it was the Bernie bros, more than anyone, who went for the jugular in exploiting Biden's clearly evident cognitive decline. So we're now seeing Democrats and other leftists coming out and openly questioning Biden's mental health. I'm not kidding. Democrats are openly questioning Biden's mental health. Jill Stein, even of the far left, right? Jill Stein, she came out and said, it's absolutely clear that Biden's team is doing everything they possibly can to keep him as sequestered from the press as possible, to keep him locked into teleprompters when he speaks publicly. Even that doesn't work, we're finding. They don't want any scrutiny of his mental health whatsoever. So, in fact, Jill Stein, I think, is still technically part of the Green Party. She actually cited the hashtag that was trending on Twitter called hashtag Biden's cognitive decline. The leftist hosts of the Chapo Trap House podcast, they're openly declaring Biden to be senile. I mean, he's exemplifying all the signs of senility according to leftist liberals. Now, can you imagine the political ads the Trump campaign is going to be able to make when Democrats and leftists are saying these things about Biden? Just check out some of the clips here on this video made by Mehdi Hassan, who's a pundit for Al Jazeera and an uber Sanders fan.
Why does Joe Biden make so much stuff up? And will it hurt him against Trump in the general election? There's much talk online, especially among Bernie Sanders supporters, about whether Joe Biden is in cognitive decline, whether he has dementia, why he's so incoherent. Now, I'm no doctor. I'm not going to make a medical diagnosis, apart from to say that in terms of his speech and his memory, there's clearly undeniably been a lot of decline in recent years.
My name's Joe Biden. I'm a Democratic candidate for the United States Senate.
But today, forget the weird stuff that Biden says that doesn't make any sense.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing.
Forget all of that, though, and focus on his falsehoods. The fact that he just makes stuff up, that he does seem to be a fabulist. Here are just 5 examples. Number 1, his arrest in apartheid South Africa. The former vice president said 3 times during the month of February alone that he got arrested trying to see Nelson Mandela in prison.
I had the great honor of meeting him. I had the great honor of being arrested with our UN ambassador on the streets of Soweto trying to get to see him on Robbins Island.
Except it's a lie. Biden himself was forced to fess up on CNN.
When I said arrested, I meant I was not able to move. Cops, upper counters would not let me go with them, made me stay where I was. I guess I wasn't arrested, I was stopped.
To be clear, he didn't misspeak, he didn't misremember, it wasn't a gaffe, it was a lie. And a really bad one, because he even claimed at one point last month that Mandela later thanked him for getting arrested.
Now, keep in mind, this has been retweeted nearly 6,000 times. That's more than the total number of people tuning in to see Biden's hilarious mock press briefings from the basement of his home. It's actually like 3 times the audience that Biden is getting. And so, needless to say, the thing that's worrying Democratic strategists the most right now is preventing what some are calling a Brexit. How's that for a coin term? A Brexit. A mass exodus of the Democratic Party by the Bernie bros, right? By these diehard supporters of Bernie that make up about 30% of the Democratic Party. And it's a very real concern. Remember back in 2016, 12% of Bernie supporters voted for Trump over Hillary Clinton. And it's looking even worse for 2020. A new ABC News Washington Post poll found that a full 15% of Bernie Sanders supporters said that they do indeed plan on casting their vote for President Trump in November. So if you want to get a sense of how weak Biden is as a candidate, you have to realize that right now the biggest concern of his campaign is actually just trying to hold on to Democrat voters. I mean, let that hit you. Biden's biggest concern right now is the desperate attempt at trying to hold on to Democrat voters. That's how bad things are right now as we speak for him. And this was thoroughly predictable, This was thoroughly predictable. The Democrats have yet to come to terms with, as never-Trumpers on the right have yet to come to terms with, this dying breed of corporatist globalists in the Republican Party. What they both have yet to come to terms with is that the political center has all but collapsed. And it's not just here in the United States. We talked about this as well. It's all throughout the West, throughout Europe, even increasingly in Latin America. It's collapsed thoroughly in India as well. The center-right, center-left globalist consensus has basically collapsed. And that consensus involved the politics of the 20th century, which revolved around economic and class conflicts. So in such a political atmosphere, the questions involve things like, are we going to raise taxes or are we going to lower taxes? Are we going to increase regulations or are we going to deregulate? Is it better to privatize government agencies and services, or should they remain public and perhaps, even increased, something like that? When all is said and done, this is a politics of the middle class, a politics that pits the rich versus the poor, as such as is centered on the middle class. And in such a political climate, the Democratic Party was generally depicted as the party for the working man, while the Republicans were depicted as bankers and only for the rich, that kind of stuff. What scholars have noticed over the last 5 years or so is that political paradigm has collapsed. The center, the political center, right and center left, that characterized the politics of the last 50 years is basically dead. It's imploded. And in its place, a new politics has emerged. What's often referred to as, what we refer to on this channel, is post-security politics. All right, post-security politics. This is where populations are increasingly turning towards concerns over immigration and culture and national sovereignty and economic security. That's where Bernie comes in, right? His socialist revolution was all about addressing the massive economic insecurities that have plagued globalist economies. So you've got concerns over national sovereignty, economic security, culture, identity, right? That's the politics that Michael Savage has been championing for years now. Borders, language, and culture, right? Borders, language, and culture. The reason the political right has been so successful of late within this political paradigm shift is that the political right has been able to pivot to the left on economics far easier and more convincing than the left has been able to pivot towards the right on issues of border security and cultural security and identity. The right has been able to adopt a more economic, nationalist, pro-blue-collar manufacturing form of economics that used to belong to the left, the New Deal Democrat. And we've seen as a result a massive defection of blue-collar workers moving away from the political left, embracing the nationalist populist political right. And this is because the right has been able to pivot towards these workers economically, while at the same time championing border security and cultural concern that the working class is concerned about, whereas the left has been able maybe to continue to pivot to the working class in terms of socialism of Sanders, but they leave the borders open and they've embraced a thoroughly anti-white, anti-male, anti-Christian cultural Marxism. So it's pretty clear why Biden is having a hard time holding on to his voting base. The Democratic base is breaking up. It's made up of the old holdovers, like Biden in the old centrist globalist days, and the increasing far left socialist wing of the AOCs and the Bernies on the other, and then the defection of the workers. So there's no question that apart from his own gaffes and inadequacies, Biden's biggest enemy in this upcoming election are Democrats themselves. Now, before you go, you'll definitely want to check out my video on Alyssa Milano's rank hypocrisy when it comes to Joe Biden's Me Too moment. It's going to absolutely make your day. I use her own words to show you it. So make sure to click on the link, and I'll see you over there. God bless.